Hello, greetings. Good afternoon for some, or good morning for some, and even be night for others. That's the beauty of living in the global society of today. With technology, we can all speak to each other, although we're in different zone of timing. So sending my greetings to all of you and welcome. Welcome to our podcast. Welcome to our conversation. My name is Jabo Butera, and I'm your host today. I'm the managing director of Diversity Business Incubator, who are bringing this conversation to you today. Me and my team were saying welcome. You can follow us on our Facebook. You can see us on our Instagram. You can see us on our Twitter. And then you'll see the previous podcast and what we've been talking about. The conversation we're having, it's going to be about half an hour together. And I'll be having a guest as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it'll be a two-way conversation, me and my guest this afternoon. It's a business topic. It's a conversation around business. It's a conversation around how to generate income. It's a conversation around how to create that financial independence. It's a conversation around how do you start it? How do you get on with that? How do you do it? And especially where you live, around you, how do you do that? And today specifically, we're going to be more inclining on looking at as well as what's around us in terms of the environment. We know all of us, we have 24 hours like everyone. We know everyone like the sun rises up in the morning and sets in the evening. We share the same sun, we share the same oxygen, we share the same planet. And how can we make business out of it? How can we having that impact on the environment, and how can we have the environment impacting us economically? So that's the conversation we're going to be talking around. So not listening from me only, but I'm bringing someone who's walking the walk and doing it. Someone who's doing a business into that. So our guest of today is going to be Owen from Pollenize CIC. And I can see Owen has joined us on the screen. Welcome on board, Owen.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, really excited.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining on this podcast. As I was telling our audience, you can reach out to Owen on their social media, but also you can find out from Pollenize CIC on their YouTube or on their Twitter. All the links are there on the screen. Click on it and you'll find all their information. Owen, we're going to be talking to us about Pollenize. But before we start talking about the organization, I want just to reiterate the purpose, why we're doing this. It's mainly to inspire someone, the one who's listening to us. We're not claiming to being the gurus and the professionals and the all-knowing it. We're just two gentlemen talking and sharing our own journey experience so that maybe someone will be inspired by it. That's the only purpose of this conversation. So without any further ado, and let me give Owen time to introduce himself as an individual, and then he'll tell us about his companies. Owen, tell us who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Jabo. My name's Owen Finnie, and I am one of the co-founders of Pollenize CIC. And CIC is just short for Community Interest Company, and that's our legal structure. It comes underneath the umbrella of social enterprise. And what Pollenize does is pollinator conservation and community beekeeping. That's essentially, in a nutshell, if someone asks me, that's what I try and keep it as concise of. And within both of those, pollinator conservation and community beekeeping, there's ways in which we make money from that as well. But for the listeners, so pollinator conservation, that concerns all pollinators. And one of the main ways we try to tackle pollinator decline, because it's become such a global issue, is that we have seed packets, and it's part of a rewilding program that we've been launching in Plymouth. and using that to help provide forage and habitat for all pollinators. And I guess it leads nicely into the community beekeeping aspect of this. So we manage honeybees across the city, and all of the honeybees are placed on iconic and interesting buildings, often underused and forgotten about places almost. And what we proposed to do were to use these underused spaces, place honeybees there, and use them as a community asset to engage the communities in those areas to take part in community beekeeping. And we just knew from the beginning that honeybees were a great sort of conduit to carry a message, because it's obviously become very popularized in media. I think a lot of people are aware that lots of the food we rely on come from honeybees pollinating, as do obviously other pollinating insects as well. But honeybees were the great vehicle in which we basically caught the attention of people to allow us to put these beehives in these interesting iconic buildings across the city. So that was, I guess, that's how I would explain what Pollenize is in terms of what we do.
Wow, that's fascinating. Even the terminologies and the word you're using, they're very interesting, because you're talking about honey here. Everyone likes honey.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're talking about pollinizing, which is that message. It's the message, the conduit, the communicator. So you're moving one message from one end to another end for the purpose of multiplication.
Absolutely, yeah. And to pollenize means to sire the next generation of plants. So that was our thought process behind why we called the business what we called it. And I guess the honey obviously is, like you said, Jabo, it kind of grabs the attention as well. I'd say most people do enjoy honey, and but for Matt and I, it took quite a while to figure out what we wanted to do with the honey, because, and this links into how we generate an income as well. But we didn't start the beekeeping to be able to harvest, tons and tons of honey. I think you need to have a commercial operation to make that a viable business. So we didn't see the honey as the value in what we were trying to achieve. We just saw that as a nice bonus to how we could maybe complement a revenue stream.
Right.
So the focus came completely away from honey, and we're like, well, let's turn these hives into assets for the community, and how we can, instead of making it about that, we can make it about people learning and being able to pass on other bits of knowledge. So say if someone come and did beekeeping, it might inspire. They might chat to their neighbor and say, I do some stuff with Pollenize, and you should really think about planting some seeds for trying to get those messages and those thought processes going. So it kind of helped us direct our focus a little bit in terms of what we are trying to achieve as a business.
Wow. Well, we'd love to hear. I'm trying to sit in the table where that time when you and Matt were sat on the table and thinking about it. So we would like our audiences to hear from you, Owen. What happened? What were you thinking of when you started this business? How did it start? How the conversation started?
That's a really exciting. I always really enjoy sort of telling this part of the story. Essentially, Matt and I both have quite a severe allergy to pollen, and so I think we had both gone to we both went to university. We're both from Plymouth. We both went to London. I spent a year away in Australia, and Matt was busy finishing off some work as well. So we eventually both arrived at home at the same time, and I tried to do the graduate ladder climb and stuff, and it just realized it wasn't for me. And I went for like a voluntary position, like a graduate scheme, and it was just, no pay in London is not great. It's trying to juggle an internship and a pub job. So without going off on a tangent too much, but we basically came home and we were like, let's think about maybe creating our own something for ourselves, like something where we can let's make our own job rather than try to find it, which I think a lot of people are really starting to clock onto now. But yeah, we have an allergy to pollen, and May to June it's pretty severe. It's you're dosing up on antihistamine tablets and obviously being a beekeeper, it's not great having that allergy whilst you're but so the sort of origin of the idea was, we have an allergy to pollen, let's dose ourselves on local honey and let's see if that alleviates some of the symptoms, just as a we had heard, but obviously we didn't know scientifically if it would yield any results. So we went to our local allotment, which was at Penley Way, which is up towards Stoke Damerel School, and we wanted to keep bees there, but we weren't allowed to in the end, just because of someone didn't want the hives nearby, just because I think they were allergic to honeybee stings. So we're like, okay, fair enough. And essentially, I guess by that person petitioning to say no, it forced us down the route of, well, let's find more accessible ways to keep bees in the city. And obviously that goes back to when I just started talking, and we approached Real Ideas, and they've got a beautiful space. It's called the Zion Garden. And it almost looks like it was made for beekeeping. I don't really know what else it would have been used for. So we found that spot and just asked them if we could keep bees there, and just thought, let's see what happens. And I think we very quickly soon realized, after we kept the bees there, with a little bit of over a bit of time, we realized, we thought, well, if we're having this problem, if we're experiencing this issue of accessing or being able to set up beehives, maybe there's legs for it to be a business that could enable others to be part of it as well. So that's really how and why it started. So, and then it kind of snowballed after we set up the first hive. We were like, where over the city in Plymouth are there underused spaces? And we're like, rooftops are amazing. People don't do anything on rooftops. So we thought, let's start thinking about some really interesting buildings around the city like that. So,
wow. So for someone who's listening, I'm trying, as to say, for what we talked about earlier, to inspire. So is this two mates who went to school together, have something in common? They all have allergy to the pollen. I'm among them. I'm allergic to pollen as well. And then you were trying to find a solution, and through that has come out a business. How many centers, or where you've placed the bees? How many have you got in now up to today? How many have you got?
So at the moment we have 9 sites where we currently have and are planning to put the bees. So I know for the listeners it might not be hugely contextual, but for the listeners in Plymouth it might be interesting to know as well. The National Marine Aquarium, that's a rooftop. The Marine Biological Association, that's a rooftop, and that looks over onto Smeaton's Tower, which is I would say that's probably the best spot to keep bees in, because it's just got an amazing panoramic view of the city. We have Plymouth Marine Laboratory, which is near Duke of Cornwall Hotel. The Genesis building, which is really close to Jabbo's office, up on the rooftop there. The Royal William Yard in the old Admiral's Garden. Again, that's a really beautiful spot. Devonport Column, where I mentioned where we first got up. The box as well, which is a nice new sort of cultural building in the middle of the city. And also the Theatre Royal as well, which is another. So a lot of them are rooftops, but we've got a couple of places we take our sort of patrons to, and they're the community beekeeping ones where we take people to do that sort of stuff.
Now, this is amazing. So someone listening, especially our young audience, these are 2 friends who started for a challenge they had, and today they're running a business, and they have these beautiful buildings with their signature on, something they're doing with relating to their own places. 2 people from Plymouth, and doing something amazing to enhance the city. So this is a very inspirational, Owen. Really, really inspirational, and I hope people will be listening and be starting seeing that opportunity to do that. We put earlier on in the screen how they can get in touch to get more, because we're not going to have enough time to go through all the exciting stuff you're doing. These are a way people they can reach you to pollinize and watch on YouTube what they do. So really, really amazing. Now, the question I want to come on is more on that economical element, because this is a business talk. When you started, were you thinking this is going to be a business, or you wanted just to solve a problem? And now, how is it generating income, and how are you seeing it in the future?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I think initially it was to solve a problem. We were like, other people were experiencing this. Well, we thought at least other people, we assumed that people were. And I think from that, initially it was like, well, we can put all these hives across the city and we can sell the honey, and it can be Plymouth honey and create this taste of the city. And, that's where we initially went. And I just, in the end, we realized that if we focus it on that single revenue stream, that it wouldn't yield, it just wouldn't have enough scope for it to be as diverse as possible. So we decided not to pigeonhole it just down one way, and decided to keep it open. And we then thought, well, membership could be a really interesting way of generating that revenue. And so we focused on that when we first started out, and we to this date we have, I think, just close to nearly 100 patrons now, and those are individuals. So we distinguish them between individuals. So like you and I, we can subscribe, and when you subscribe, that means you have access to beekeeping on a weekly basis over the calendar, in which you can keep the bees. You get a share of the honey at the end of the year, so you get a dividend. And also it means you don't have to sort of pay out for the equipment to start. You can dip your toe in and go, I like beekeeping, I'm going to do this as much as I can with Pollenize. Or you can go, I'm going to probably come once a month, and it's just something nice I like to do every now and then to sort of connect back with nature. So that's the individual sort of membership, and that's one revenue stream. But the other one comes from which is something which we're really looking to develop and push now, is the corporate membership. So CSR, so getting corporate social responsibility and asking businesses to improve their green credentials. And we put a package together for them to enable them to support. So we offer services in return for their membership. And that's we've got like four businesses on board, but I think we quickly realized when we did the numbers that I think we need at least about 30 businesses on board to generate a sustainable income for Matt and I to be able to expand the business. So it's just it was working through seeing that membership has really got legs to be a main revenue stream, and then we kind of realize if we want to mitigate and enable the creation of habitat and forage for all pollinators, we should really think about how we can make the seed packet a really interesting feature. So the seed packet, you can log and sow your coordinates using what 3 words, and I think most people may have seen that on television. Divided up into meters, is it 3 meters squared or something? And you get 3 random words attached to it, but you log your sowing coordinate using that system on our website. So it's a citizen science element, so you can see where others are planting in the city, and you can see where you're making a difference. And I think that was a nice feature to make it more than just a seed packet as well. So that's another revenue stream, and that actually is a really one that's doing us quite well at the moment, because it's quite a tangible way to make a difference. And that should when you see something grow and you see something come up and flower, that's quite inspiring, especially if you see it attracting pollinators. It's kind of you've done that and you've made the difference. So we thought that was that potentially had real good opportunity to turn that into a revenue stream as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And I hope those who are listening, and I'm calling out to businesses especially, where you talk about that responsibility, that CSR, your corporate responsibility, social responsibility. It's not you don't have to be a massive organization to do that. And we talked about earlier on, we all have one planet. We only share one planet, all of us. We breathe the same air. So it's each of us individual responsibility to this planet. And what you're doing, exactly that's what it is. You are healing, you are using the planet, you're using the nature to create this green space. So because of the pollinizing, the bees will do the pollination of the plants, and then we'll have more plants on the planet, and that create the oxygen. So there is that whole cycle, and each of us, it's our responsibility. And today's society, we've seen it, and now this is an opportunity of, and I'm excited because you have a lot of young people now who are understanding and engaging in this ecological conversation, not to say warriors. But now you're saying you can be one and yet make money out of it. Tell us how if I'm a young person and I'm passionate about ecology, how will I be excited to go and do business with it? What would be the advice you can tell someone?
Yeah, I guess it's probably important to point out that the community beekeeping is one aspect of it, but the pollinator conservation stuff has a lot of science behind it. So I just want to, for the young people that are listening as well, is that, you know, this isn't it's not just a social enterprise that has one sort of scope. It's we take pollen from the hives passively, where the bees walk through some tubes. We change those tubes every week, and we store them and send them away for DNA analysis. And that helps build a floral picture of what the bees are foraging on. So that's how we inform the seed packet recipes as well. So, you know, there's lots of science of what we're extracting from the beehives as well. So, and we realize for a lot of people that the world of beekeeping is quite hidden sometimes. So we're building cameras at the moment that go on the front of the hive and on the internals of the hive. So you can actually see like a prototype on our YouTube channel of what that looks like. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's not just about beekeeping, that there's a lot of science that we can extract, and the bees they're biosensors, and they will tell us what's going on in the environment. They've been doing it for thousands of years. So, but we've just got to a point in humanity where we're able to understand that insect language that the bees communicate with as well. So, just the scope of what we do, you know, like maybe in time we may have a complete arm of the business that might be dedicated to just the pure science of what we're doing. So for the listeners, it's to sort of realize that the idea can always be much more. It's just about having the I guess the bravery and the courage to sort of just acknowledge your own, you know, if you've got something really interested in your head, like, don't be afraid to just go with it. And, you know, I never thought that we would be going down quite a heavy scientific route now. And, you know, that's where we're going. And I think that may be where there's a real possible chance of us doing some serious positive impact on the planet as well. So at first it was like, oh, we can just put bees on, they can help pollinate the place and we can do seed packets. But now we might be looking at how we can decode the honeybee waggle dance, which will tell us where the bees are going in real time. And, you know, we're already building cameras and prototypes to do this. And that could have huge implications to understand where there's gaps and abundances in forage. And, you know, a statutory body could go, we could present this data to them and say, hey, look, you need to start planting here. The bees are flying way too far for their forage. They need to be flying closer by. And so it has great research potential. And yeah, I guess the point I'm making is that your idea can always evolve constantly. So it's just about being brave to just go with it and just see it as an opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It's being brave, courageous, and your idea that I can't remember who said it. I think it's Emerson. He said, "There's never been a stupid idea."
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't think your idea is stupid. Don't think this is only small. This is only ecological. This is just how I recycle. This is more personal. Be courageous. Be brave. That's what you're saying, Owen. Be
Absolutely.
brave and get it out. Wow. What would you be your vision? What would you love to see as a dream? As you're now on this journey, you've been embarking on this journey a few years down the line. Let's say in the next 2 years, what would you like to see happening in Plymouth?
In Plymouth, I would like to see a city that is really behind creating the best habitat and forage for all pollinators. So creating green corridors where wildlife can travel down. It's already happening, but a much more clear dialogue and communication between a statutory body and the public, and how the public can co-own, be co-responsible for green space. And I think a city that is engaged behind nature and understands why it's important, that can become a blueprint of how you then can scale that up to another city and say, hey, look, Plymouth's doing this in a really good way, wow. Let's think about how we could maybe mimic this or do something similar. So and I'm not going to sit here and say that we have all the answers, but I'd say we can definitely be a conduit, or we can definitely be something that could enable or facilitate those ideas, because I think we captured a small part of the population's attention in Plymouth, and I think the idea has legs to grow. So I'd love to see Pollenize as a key partner or a strategic player in how the city does create this message about pollinator conservation in the city, because it needs to happen now. It's not maybe we should talk about that later. The climate crisis is well and truly here and has been for a while, and I think the faster we can have those conversations and the more people's hands are less tied in sort of government sort of levels, and budgets are allocated for these sort of things, I think it will be for the better. So yeah, 2 years I'd love to see Plymouth looking like a jungle nearly, but in a nice clean, nice, navigable, so we can still move around.
a city behind the nature. That's really amazing and inspiring.
Yeah.
Wow. Time goes fast when you're having fun.
Yeah, God, I know.
We've been having a conversation, and it's so interesting. What is Owen's, apart being in the bees and thinking about how the city going to becoming a jungle and giving a place to the nature, what is your hobby? What do you do? What is it someone in Plymouth can do? If someone is watching us from America, what does Owen do?
Yeah, so we're right next to the seaside. It's beautiful. I mean, it took me a while to sort of really appreciate. I am from Plymouth and have grown up here, but I think as a teenager, you do lots of exploring. We went into the woods, we go down to the rivers, rivers around Dartmoor. We'd always go to the beach at Core Sands and King Sands, and I think as a kid, when I was a teenager, I really took that for granted. But now it's like you just realize how lucky you are, because you've got the sea one side, and I do a bit of surfing. As I grew up, always did a bit of skateboarding, and just anything near the water generally. I enjoy doing that a lot. And also I do like to get out into Dartmoor and explore there and have a few good walks. There's a woods near Two Bridges called Wisman Woods. It's a very ancient old oak forest, and I mean, if anyone ever comes down that way, I'd recommend that as a place to go for a walk for sure.
Brilliant. Wow. But thank you. There's a lot to see and to enjoy in Plymouth. And as you're explaining, as someone who grew up in Plymouth, you know the corners and you still enjoy the city. You went out, you studied, you come back and you're applying what you studied, your passion. It's amazing. It's good to have a conversation with us. As I was saying, the time is always goes faster, but we'll get more time to talk. And we are in the city together. It's our Plymouth. It's we're doing most of us all the same work. We're trying to inspire the next generation. We are open to the collaboration, and we are calling for everyone. Let's do this amazing. Let's give a pat on the back of each other for what we are doing, like Owen and Matt are doing. It's amazing your work, and hopefully your work will inspire the next generation, and we'll see more bees on the street, and people will be starting seeing what they're pollinizing in the city, and that will make them remember, yes, Owen started that. So, but I'm gonna finish by saying thank you very much for your hard work. Keep going, keep shining, and we'll get to hear more about what you're doing, and we'll keep seeing each other in the city and collaborating.
Thank you, Javo. I'm absolutely 100% behind your message and the reason behind this podcast as well. And yeah, thanks for your time as well.
You take care, and thank you to all our listeners and viewers. Take care.